So when you think about summer,
In summer,
you think about ice cream, watermelon, maybe sleeping in. I don't know, all those things make me think about summer.
in summer,
But this summer, I had a different thing I wanted to do. This summer, I wanted to get to know Jesus a little bit better. And last week on my Instagram, I asked some of you guys, would you be interested in reading through a chronological order of the gospel? So why go through the Bible this way? Let me show you a verse in Philippians, and the Apostle Paul says, "For me to live is Christ." He considered it so important in his life to live and to know the person of Jesus. And so I think it's helpful to walk through chronologically the life of Jesus. And so if you start in Matthew and read all the way through the book of John, what you're going to do is you're actually going to get 4 different authors' pictures or accounts of who Jesus is and what Jesus did. And so real quick, let me just share with you guys a quick overview. So Matthew, also known as Levi, was a tax collector. And when you read it, it's written towards a Jewish audience, so understand that going in. Interestingly to note, he was also not following Jesus until chapter 9 of his own gospel account. He intended for you to look at the book of Matthew through the eyes of a tax collector. Then we have Mark, also known as John Mark. And though he penned it, he was a scribe, most scholars actually think that this is the account of the Apostle Peter. But the Apostle Peter was a fisherman, which meant he wasn't educated, and so he wasn't able to read or write, but so he dictated to John Mark, and John Mark helped give us a picture through the eyes of uneducated fisherman, which is Peter. One other interesting thing to note is Matthew was written before Mark, and so in a lot of cases, he sort of had the advantage of knowing what Matthew already wrote, so he didn't include a lot of extra stuff. Then we have Luke. Luke is the first century physician or doctor. We know that from Colossians chapter 4, verse 14. Many people think that Mary, Jesus' mother, was a very heavy contributor to the writing of this gospel. There's just certain elements and timelines of things that Luke wouldn't know that someone else had to have. And so that's kind of where Mary comes in. One thing that's interesting that the other 2 gospels that we've talked about, Matthew and Mark, that's different about Luke is that Luke actually gives us a timeline. It's written in the first 4 books of his gospel that it's his goal and his aim to give a detailed and dedicated account to the life of Jesus. And so what Luke aims to do, where Matthew was through the eyes of a tax collector and Mark was through the eyes of an uneducated fisherman, Luke wants to give us a picture of the life of Jesus through the eyes of many people or through the world. And so he's trying to kind of open that up. The last one is John. It's the last one in order. It was also the last one written. It was the final gospel written. John had read the other 3, obviously, and it was written 60 years after Jesus's death, burial, and resurrection. And so what John kind of aims to do is he kind of comes to back in and fill in some of the gaps, some of the things that he doesn't want to get lost. John's is the most different of the 3. John's main emphasis all the way throughout is to point out that Jesus is in fact the Son of God and that he is worth following. So we're going to look at Jesus's humanity. We're going to look at Jesus's divinity or his deity or his godness. And that's what I'm going to do as I read through the Gospels this summer. I hope you join me. If you're interested, head to the highlight here in my story. You can screenshot this, and this is day 1 through 5. I'm a big fan of 5-day reading plans. It gives you the weekend to catch up because sometimes you miss stuff. I'm starting day 1. Let's do this together. See you guys.